guys, my name is Faith Berkebile and I'm going to talk about the impact of gun control on Japanese society. So, the history of Japanese gun control. The Japanese firearm and sword possession law was first passed in 1958, and this prohibited the purchasing of all firearms with the exception of shotguns and air rifles, which were mainly used for hunting purposes. To purchase a shotgun or an air rifle, an individual has to go through a vigorous process of testing, background checking, mental health screening, drug tests, and so on. And the citizens of Japan are actually not guaranteed the right to privately own any type of firearm, which is the opposite of what is guaranteed in the Second Amendment in the Constitution of the United States, which guarantees us the right to bear arms. The relationship between the Japanese culture and strict gun control. So the culture of the people in Japan is very group-oriented, and it emphasizes the importance of working together in a collectivist manner. Throughout Japanese history, citizens within the country have placed great focus on the well-being of the group rather than the well-being of the individual alone. They utilize interdependence to work towards common goals. The gun regulation policies in Japan are a direct result of these cultural values. This belief can be traced back to the years of the samurai, when the soldiers were expected to commit seppuku if they lost a battle in order to avoid dishonoring their family and their friends. The loyalty that the Japanese people possess for their culture and their society is a large part of the reason that gun violence is so low in this country. The process of accessing a gun in Japan. The extremely low numbers of gun-related crimes in Japan are rooted in the vigorous screening processes that are required before an individual has the opportunity to purchase a firearm. There are also restrictive policies that prohibit many people from being able to purchase a gun. For example, a person with a mental illness, a person who has declared bankruptcy, a person who has ever violated the law, a person who has ever received a restraining order, and a person who is living with a potentially dangerous spouse are all disqualified for purchase. In order to be eligible to buy a gun, an individual must take a class that spans around 12 hours, pass a written and oral exam, and then pass a shooting test that requires over 90% accuracy. This license also must be renewed every 3 years. After passing this test, a mental evaluation and drug test is required. Police also check for any past history of violent activity. Once an individual has successfully purchased the gun, police also possess the ability to inspect the gun whenever they deem necessary. The individual must inform the police about where the gun and the ammunition is being held, and it all has to be stored in a secure and locked space. In comparison to the United States, in 2014 there were only 6 gun-related deaths in Japan, whereas in the United States there were over 30,000. The police in Japan do not carry guns on them at all times. They're actually trained in martial arts so that they use that in the face of danger instead of resulting to gun violence, whereas police in the United States are armed with a gun 24/7. And there are 0.3 guns per 100 persons in Japan, and there are 75 guns per 100 persons in the United States.
Japan is an interesting outlier when it comes to gun violence. They're about 1/3 of the size of the US, and they have the lowest rate of gun violence in the developed world. It is so peaceful there that police often run out of things to do. Seriously, in 2015, only 6 shots in total were fired by police in all of Japan. Japan's success is the result of several factors, including a history of wars, Japanese culture, and their current gun laws. The general feeling among Japanese citizens is that war and violence is terrible for the country, so they should do everything in their power to avoid going back to that. As a result, Japanese gun laws start with the premise that guns should not have a role in civilian society. That idea even extends into how the police operate. Instead of arms training, the police spends many hours training in martial arts techniques. If they're dealing with a violent or drunk person, sometimes they will use these huge futons to basically roll up the person like a burrito and take them back to the station until they calm down. From the civilian side, if a person wants to buy a gun, they have every right to do so, but the process is very complex and thorough. To buy a gun in Japan, first you have to take a day-long class and pass a written exam. Then you have to take a shooting range test and pass it with 95% accuracy or higher. Then you have to go to a hospital and pass a mental health exam and drug test. And lastly, you have to pass a comprehensive background check that makes sure you don't have any extremist or criminal associations. Only then you'll be allowed to purchase a shotgun or an air rifle, but no handguns or semi-automatic weapons, which are completely banned for civilians.
So, in conclusion, Japan has one of the most unique approaches to gun control in the world and also, obviously, one of the most successful. These strict policies have caused the Japanese people to have more respect for the value of life and the importance of interpersonal safety. Their decisions are made off of the basis of the benefit of the group rather than the individual, and the country as a whole is ran on a respect for life and those around them. As a society, Japan places the highest regard on the safety of its citizens, which is something that is very admirable and something that I think should also be modeled by other countries around the world.